This one?
There we are. Yes. The lower picture is that of John Vincent, and Lewis Miller was the top picture. They were prominent Methodists in their mid-40s. Vincent was a clergyman, later to become a bishop, with Philadelphia roots, and Miller, a wealthy inventor and manufacturer of farm mowing equipment and threshing machines from Akron, Ohio. Their pietistic backgrounds combined with a passion for education led each in his own environment to focus on improving Sunday school instruction. Vincent wrote and edited and published graded teaching materials. Miller was a Sunday school superintendent who recruited secular teachers for his classes, and each of them, and by the way, Miller even designed an assembly room and classrooms which was called the Akron Plan, and that was picked up by Methodist churches all around the country, including Bloomington. And if you go into Park Street Methodist Church, right here, it's founded on the Akron Plan. Having become acquainted at Methodist events, the two men agreed in 1872 to explore the idea of a non-denominational summer Sunday school teachers' camp. It was not to be the widely prevalent tent revival meetings of small-town America, but it would devote itself to Bible study, teacher training, lectures, devotional exercises, entertainment, and recreation. One of Lewis Miller's Sunday school teachers suggested a possible site, Fairpoint, in Lake Chautauqua, where a Methodist campground had been established in 1870. Vincent and Miller made the trip in August 1873. Fairpoint offered a covered platform, bench seats under the trees, many cottages, and most important, cleared spaces for the creation of meeting and living tents. They leased the grounds for the following year, 1874, and the rest is history. Incidentally, as the Chautauqua summer seasons progressed, tents slowly began to be placed on permanent platforms. There we are. Let's see. I want to go back one. There is Ellen and Stuart and I and a friend, a neighbor who was visiting, standing on an old tent platform. These tent platforms began to be slowly permanent buildings began to be placed on the platforms, and these in turn became the foundations for small wooden Victorian cottages on oddly shaped little lots. Later, there were built guest houses and small hotels. All of Chautauqua is now on the National Historic Register. And hundreds of these summer dwellings, beautifully maintained, provide today's visitor with a veritable museum of architectural types. On August 4th, 1874, the first session of the Sunday School Teachers Assembly opened to run for 15 days. Miller was elected president, and Vincent, the superintendent of instruction. Pre-publicity for this event would put a modern marketing firm to shame. Vincent's publication, the Sunday School Journal, had a circulation of 100,000. For months, it carried special announcements, as did the secular press all over the United States, and in selected foreign countries. Some 10,000 earnest preachers, teachers, and Sunday school officials from 25 states, the British Isles, and even India showed up for all or part of this 2-week assembly. All of the mainline Protestant denominations were represented, with most of them erecting denominational cottages in later years. Today, Catholics and Jews also conduct services on the grounds, and the Jews opened a synagogue just a few years ago. The participants were treated to 8 sermons, 22 lectures on Sunday school techniques, 7 on biblical history and geography, not to mention hymn sings, nature walks, swimming, and boating. There were 2 very creative innovations. A tent museum to illustrate biblical and oriental costumes and manners with artifacts from Assyria, Egypt, and Palestine, and even a mummy donated by Mount Union College in Alliance, Ohio. The second innovation was a delightful open-air scale model of Palestine. Yeah. Located next to the lake, which represented the Mediterranean Sea, the model incorporated a 15-foot high pile of rocks labeled Mount Hermon, a miniature Dead Sea, and a trickle representing the Jordan River. And there were tiny white iron castings of towns and cities nestled accurately on the hills and in the valleys of this 300-foot-long Holy Land. Palestine Park is still a favorite place for children to play and for Sunday afternoon guided tours. The whole 2-week venture was a resounding success, even though Lewis Miller had to make up a deficit that first summer from his own pocket. By the third assembly in 1876, finances were stabilized. Carefully managed gate fees enabled Vincent and Miller, with increasing boldness, to not only lengthen the duration of the assembly, but more significantly, to introduce a variety of secular, particularly renowned speakers from different disciplines. These events had a lasting impact on adult education, primarily through broad reading and exposure to a variety of opinions on issues of the day, as well as having contact with music and the other arts. They were recommending continuing education before the term was even invented. Now, let me digress to point out some ties that the original Chautauqua had with Illinois. Lewis Miller had opened a mower factory in Plainfield in the mid-1840s. He studied at Plainfield Academy, and he married Mary Alexander there, the daughter of a wealthy farmer. A few years later, he moved the family back to Akron, Ohio. Pastor John Vincent, who had served churches in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, moved west to hold pastors in Joliet, Rockford, Galena, Chicago. In fact, in 1861 in Galena, he preached a farewell sermon standing atop a freight car just before the county guards left for the Civil War with Ulysses Grant, who was a member of his church. The resourceful Vincent was later to capitalize on this friendship, for in August 1875, President Grant assured the success of the Second Chautauqua Assembly by addressing 30,000 people in the Grove. Grant was the first of 9 presidents to come to the institution, including Teddy, and Franklin Roosevelt, who is seen here. You can't see him well, but he's in the amphitheater giving a famous speech which was called the I Hate War speech. And this was in 1936, and we were there to hear part of it. We didn't stay too long, it was a huge crowd. The Illinois connection surfaced once again in 1883 when Vincent persuaded a young minister of Morgan Park Baptist Church in Chicago to come to Chautauqua as an instructor in Hebrew language and literature. William Rainey Harper thus began to guide and participate in the educational programs for 27 years. When, in 1891, he became president of the University of Chicago, he instituted 3 features which he had developed at Chautauqua. One was a full-day summer session, full college summer session, university extension work, and correspondence courses. But to resume our main story, what started as a 15-day religiously oriented camps lengthened to 43 days by 1879, 5 years later, and then to 60 days by 1899, which is close to the present day pattern of 9 weeks. And what had drawn Sunday school teachers and clergymen began to draw secular teachers who took all sorts of professional courses, and laypersons who were interested in self-improvement and the world at large. Furthermore, many of them brought their families too. All of these eager adults sought clarification of the great reform movements of the day. Francis Willard addressed a temperance convention there in 1876. And they established a summer headquarters at Chautauqua for the WCTU, Women's Christian Temperance Organization. That was their cottage. By the turn of the century, I did have a note here. The idea of the open platform, as it came to be called, was a thought-provoking, made Chautauqua a thought-provoking, very earnest, and literally sober place. By the turn of the 20th century, the 50-acre grove had expanded to 600 acres. It is a little over 700 today. Think of 20 times the extent of Westminster Village, and that's about the extent of the present-day Chautauqua. Automobiles were not allowed on the grounds except for loading and unloading luggage, and the main entrance gate was located half a mile up from the lake.